Bank, and I'm your host for Mania, live here at Mania 2020. And today I've been privileged to be joined by our guest, Charles. Hi, Charles. So please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do at the moment.
Sure. Well, I'm a lawyer at global law firm CMS. I've also got roles on advisory boards for policy and investment. I'm interested in deep tech. So human times machine is a big theme for me for many years, and it's great that that's what's been chosen for Money 2020 this year.
Yes, exactly. And that being a theme for Money 2020 today as for this week as well, tell us about what happened yesterday. So you were a speaker for one of the sessions yesterday. Yeah. How was that? What was the topic about?
Yeah, it was good. So we were talking, of course, about AI in financial services.
Yeah,
there are lots of themes around that.
So it's the most recurring theme,
I think so. Yeah, every year has a thing, and this is one of the things this year.
Absolutely.
So there were four of us. Two were technologists, two had legal regulatory backgrounds. Mm-hmm. The technologists are talking about implementation, how you get the what we know these tools can do. These are amazing technologies, and they're rapidly improving. So how do you work with that, get them in the business in a way that's trusted by the business and customers? Yeah. So every year in fintech, whatever we're talking about, we're also talking about trust, even when we don't say that. Then two of us who've got the legal regulatory policy background, we're trying to figure out where ethics sits in this.
Yeah.
So regulation is bound to be principles-based. We know from the EU AI Act, you've kind of got a three-stage process. You've got to identify AI deployments. You've got to do some risk classification on them. Then you've got to be able to remediate where they are taking more risk than is permitted. Sitting behind all of that, we're going to have questions around the ethics of using AI.
Absolutely,
so it's going to be a force multiplier for customer service and making the customers feel like they're part of the business, but only if it's used well and people don't feel manipulated by it.
Absolutely. And I think in a time where it's a really massive force of emerging trends, it's very unprecedented as well. So we need experts like yourself to look out for any things that people don't find themselves like in trouble for in the future, for example.
Yeah.
And that's like a really key.
I think it's easy. We see in these modern businesses that are tech-driven, reputation is key. Absolutely. So this trust, ethics, reputation, they're all related. They're a significant part of the organization. So you can't just take an ethical question and hand it off to an ethics board who's then supposed to kind of figure it out in the abstract. The ethics have got to be there as the foundation of what the organization is doing. Customers will trust the organization, the products will feed into that. So there should be a virtuous circle of this. I think sometimes people are more worried about AI adoption and what it can mean. I think if we can look at the positives and see it as a way of providing a safe way for customers to have a better experience of the business, that's what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, exactly. And specifically in the payments industry, how do you see AI shaping within this space?
Sure. Payments, data, information, a lot of rules across different jurisdictions. So we're trying to use the systems to do a number of things. And what's interesting is the same technology can operate in a way that the EU regulation would consider low risk because maybe it's just supporting a chatbot, or high risk because it's doing credit scoring, but the same technology is operating in both. So that's one thing that the regulatory people have got to get their heads around, that you can't classify the technology. You've got to have view on the technology, plus what it's doing, plus the impact on customers, and then build in that foundational layer around the ethics and values of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And so on the whole topic of AI as well, you have literally written a book on the subject. How do laws and regulation come into play in this brave new AI-driven world, would you say?
Well, yeah, the book is interesting. So I had a lot of collaborators. I was.
What's the title of the book?
It's called AI Law and Regulation.
AI Law and Regulation. Grab your copies.
And we're working on the second edition now, so there'll be an even thicker book coming out end of the year. So I guess I was commissioned a couple of years ago. I've got a long background in AI policy, mainly working with the universities. It became much more mainstream when generative AI kind of hit the headlines and was usable by everybody. Everybody can download it. Everybody should be using all of the models and playing with them and testing them and figuring out what they can do and what they can't do and where they go wrong. They're really funny, so you should play with them. The book is about 600 pages, and it predates the EU AI Act. So the EU Act is the first piece of direct regulation that we've got that's kind of horizontal across AI. So it's not looking at AI in banking, AI in medicine, AI in insurance. It's looking at deployment of AI. We already had industry level vertical rules. So if we think about financial services, anyone who's familiar with the customer duty regulation, you can use AI or not AI to have an outcome for customers, and the regulator will test you by reference to what that outcome is. So in a sense, financial services firms are ahead of the thinking in this area because they're already familiar with using tools, but being responsible for the outcome. I think we'll see more of that. So the book is being updated to now include the directly applicable AI regulation.
So that's what the second edition will be about. Yes.
So it's going to be even longer.
Yeah. How far are you along in the book, second edition so far?
So I've done most of my updates, and then I'm working with the collaborators for different industry chapters and different subtopics to kind of figure out with them what they're updating, how we're doing it, with a deadline in, I think we're going to get first drafts back within 4 weeks. So if any of them are listening, they know they're on the clock. We'll be chasing any that don't come back in. And then we'll do another kind of work through all of the chapters for consistency, up-to-dateness, and I'm kind of pulling it together thematically.
Great. So the second edition will be focusing more now of the new acts that have been shared as well.
So everything since the last 2 years, and a lot happened. So we're going to cover LLMs in much more detail. We're going to cover more of the deployments. We've already got a financial services chapter, so that's being built out for all of the use cases that we've seen in the last couple of years. So it's a lot of work, but it's great fun because whatever the cliche is, if you want to learn something, then you should write it or teach it, and that's been my experience.
Yeah, and for the second edition, what would you say is an extract of the most intriguing topic that is for you that you've been writing about in the second edition?
Ethics.
Okay.
I'm just seeing it as the thing that we've got to fix and get right before we can do all the rest of it.
And by ethics, you mean for?
So. Practical applications, like in model training, is your supply chain robust and secure? Is when firms are doing test cases, if you have an example of 2 employees who both would like to use the models, there are only enough licenses for some people. So employee A gets to use the new model, gets a promotion. Employee B doesn't get to use a new model, they don't get a promotion. So these are really quite practical questions. The ethical piece isn't abstract. It's how an organization's values are built into its adoption of AI, because it's only on that basis that you can answer the day-to-day questions. So I used to get questions around ethics and think, well, I'm a lawyer, so I'm not an ethical expert. I'm not a moral philosopher. There are a group of us now who are trying to learn this stuff together. A colleague of mine, Erica Stanford, has kind of built a little community of people who've got an interest in this. So one of the things I said on the stage is, I think we would anticipate now every firm having ethical AI usage policy, and firms employing psychologists, firms employing philosophers. So we're kind of building out. We talk about the worries about job displacement, and for sure, policymakers, politicians, that is the thing for them. Is this going to be an issue creating job losses?
And what is your opinion on that as well? Because it's very a hot topic. But
I think I have the kind of the view that is the kind of more optimistic side of it, that there will be new jobs. So I'm using these examples of psychologists and philosophers, and for sure, the jobs that go are the less interesting jobs. So what the machines can do is large administrative tasks. And you wouldn't want humans to do that because they're less efficient.
Yeah.
And the humans have got better things to do than that. Would you rather be doing data entry work, or would you rather be thinking about how the models can interact with customers for that more successful customer experience that you talked about at the start?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So lastly, any predictions on what we'll see in the AI space as we move beyond 2025?
Yeah, I think we'll start to get a sense of what all the investment has paid for. We're going to see much more, I think, intersection between the deep tech of what the models are doing and people's ability to interact directly with them. One of the great things about generative AI is you could pay $20 a month and on a web browser have access to the best tools in the world. But they were trained on the internet, and the internet's a bit random. So having tools that are trained on your proprietary system, I think when we think about the information in the world, we think about the internet.
Yeah.
But of course, if you think about your company, my company, most of our information isn't on the internet. There's a website, but that's kind of the tip of the iceberg. The information is all inside our servers, inside our computers, inside our heads. So it's having the models work with that information so that they are most effective for what the business needs. So if you've got a model that knows what you know, not what the internet knows, then that's much more effective at helping you do your job. Same for me. So that's where I think we're going to see the tools develop. They'll become more personalized for corporate users as well as individual users.
Yeah, absolutely. And to round it off as well, how has your Money 2020 experience been? Is the second day?
Yeah, it's tiring. It's hard work. People seem to really love being here.
Yeah.
People love their companies. There's a lot of energy around the brands.
Especially around
the Enfuce stand with the snowstorms and the dancing and the Macarena and the ice creams. It's all happening. So it is not like a conference. It's like a bunch of passionate people who enjoy what they do and are coming here with lots of people they know and people they don't know. I think it really has been a mind-opening experience.
And you've been to Money 2020 before?
I haven't.
This is your first time?
This is my first, I came because I was asked to speak.
Yeah.
And I think I'd misunderstood what was going on here, so I can go back and report to the colleagues about what they've been missing too. And I've got other colleagues here who are kind of walking around enjoying it as well.
Great. Well, next year I'll probably maybe look forward to seeing your stand as well. Then maybe a snow machine or.
I think so. What can CMS do? That's the question. Okay, right
perfect.
in. Yeah.
But thanks so much for your time, Charles. And thanks for coming to be a guest on the podcast.
Perfect. Thanks for inviting me.